Imagine living in a country where your skin color decides your absolute entire future, where your dreams, your freedom, even your basic humanity are restricted from the very moment you take your first breath. It's unthinkable, right? Well, Nelson Mandela fought against this exact brutal injustice for decades. Hello and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to dive deep into the beginning of his incredible journey. We'll be walking through this powerful chapter from your CBSE Class 10 syllabus together, step by step. Let's get started.
Now, to truly grasp the weight of this lesson, we have to look at the historical context. For over 300 years, think about that, more than 3 centuries, South Africa was gripped by apartheid. It was a devastating system of institutionalized racial segregation. But on May 10, 1994, history was made. Just like the BBC reported, Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won a staggering 252 out of 400 seats in the first democratic elections in South Africa's history. This wasn't just a political win, you guys. It was the ultimate triumph of human dignity. And for your board exams, keeping this context in mind is absolutely essential.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. The historic Inauguration Day, a spectacular military display, the sacrifices of patriots, man's twin obligations, a quick grammar and vocabulary check, and finally, a recap with expected board questions.
Section 1. The Historic Inauguration Day and Military Display.
Let's set the scene. We're standing under this clear, bright sky over the Union buildings in Pretoria. Mandela has just been sworn in as president, and he's delivering a soaring speech about liberty to a massive crowd. Let's read what he says. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defense Force and police saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Wow. The literal meaning here is pretty awesome. A massive, perfectly coordinated air show celebrating the new democratic government. But the hidden meaning, the real emotional core of this paragraph, is entirely in the reaction of those military generals standing right beside him.
Let's quickly break down a couple of crucial vocabulary words from this passage. First up, bedecked. It simply means decorated. So their chests were bedecked or covered in ribbons and medals. And when Mandela says he was not unmindful, he means he was highly conscious, acutely aware of a very bitter truth. Notice the profound irony here. These exact same generals, standing there in their glorious uniforms, are now saluting him. But literally just a few years prior, during the apartheid regime, their entire job was to hunt him down and throw him in a prison cell. The system has completely, totally flipped.
So, I want you to actively think about this for a second. Why is it so incredibly significant that the military generals are saluting Mandela instead of arresting him? It's because this salute is the ultimate proof that the military is no longer an instrument of racial oppression. It has shifted its loyalty entirely to a free and democratic South Africa. The power dynamic hasn't just shifted, it's a whole new world.
Section 2. The Sacrifices of Patriots.
As the jets leave a beautiful smoke trail of the new South African flag, Mandela's mind shifts from this glorious present right back to the painful past. He reflects, that day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them. This right here, this is the emotional peak of this section. The freedom they are celebrating absolutely wasn't free. It was bought with unimaginable, staggering sacrifice. You can feel Mandela's deep, agonizing guilt that the very people who gave their lives for this exact moment aren't even there to witness it.
And this brilliantly illustrates his deep humility. Giants of the movement, leaders like Oliver Tambo, stand alongside Mandela himself in history. When Mandela calls himself the sum of all those African patriots, he's saying, look, I didn't achieve this victory alone. He is simply the final result, the culmination of generations of tears, blood, and leadership that came long before him. He's like the anchor, standing at the very end of a long, noble line of heroes.
Let's test your understanding of this metaphor. What does Mandela actually mean when he says he is simply the sum of all those African patriots? Simply put, he means his success is built entirely on the foundation of their sacrifices. He carries their legacy forward. He is the living embodiment of their collective struggle.
Section 3. Man's Twin Obligations. Now we transition from historical reflection to a really profound philosophical concept.
And a quick heads up, examiners absolutely love this next section, so pay close attention. Mandela writes, "In life, every man has twin obligations. Obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both." Mandela is laying down a universal truth here. Every human being has two fundamental duties. But he immediately shatters that perfect ideal by explaining the harsh, ugly reality of apartheid.
Let's contrast these two duties directly. Obligation 1 is highly personal. It's your duty to your family, your parents, your wife, and your kids. Obligation 2 is social. It's your duty to your people, your community, and your country. The crucial point here is that in a normal, free society, you can balance these. You can be a good parent and a good citizen. But for a black man in apartheid South Africa, choosing to fight for his people, Obligation 2, meant being violently ripped away from his family, Obligation 1. If he tried to be a patriot, he was forced into a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion, essentially living as an outlaw.
So ask yourself this critical question. Why was it impossible for a man of color in South Africa to fulfill his twin obligations? Well, it's because the racist system explicitly punished anyone who stood up for their community. It isolated them, imprisoned them, and completely destroyed their ability to be a father, a husband, or a son.
Section 4, Grammar and Vocabulary Scale.
Okay, we've unpacked some seriously heavy historical and philosophical themes. Now let's pivot slightly and look at the actual language mechanics Mandela uses in the text. This is a super essential part of your active reading prep. The text provides a brilliant exercise on word formations. Notice how action words, verbs, transform into concepts, nouns, just by adding a suffix like ion or ment. So form becomes formation, like the perfect formation of the Jets. Govern becomes government. Rebel shifts its spelling just a tiny bit to become rebellion, and constitute turns into constitution. Mastering these kinds of word transformations is a fantastic, surefire way to upgrade your vocabulary for the exam.
Section 5, Recap and Board Questions.
All right, we have covered some incredible ground today. Let's pull it all together so it's permanently locked into your memory. We witnessed the ultimate triumph of democracy over 3 centuries of white rule. We saw the shifting loyalty of the military, moving from arresting freedom fighters to saluting a black president. We felt Mandela's deep pain over the unthanked sacrifices of thousands of African patriots. And finally, we dissected the tragedy of the unfulfilled twin obligations caused by systemic oppression.
And right here is your ultimate value add, the top 5 expected board questions straight out of this section. Number 1, what do the military generals do? How is their attitude changed and why? Number 2, what does Mandela mean when he says he is the sum of all those African patriots? Number 3, what twin obligations does he mention? Number 4, why couldn't a man of color fulfill both obligations in South Africa? And number 5, our quick grammar check, forming nouns from verbs like rebel and constitute. If you can answer these confidently, you have entirely mastered Part 1.
You guys have done a fantastic job diving deep into the text today, but I want to leave you with a question to chew on. If freedom requires such unimaginable sacrifice, what does it truly mean to be a free man? Is it just breaking the chains, or is it something much, much more? In Part 2, we'll see exactly how Mandela explains the true meaning of courage, freedom, and leadership. Keep reviewing what we learned, and I'll see you in the next explainer.